It was 2:34 a.m. when Mark Thompson jolted awake to the shrill screech of his smoke alarm. His pulse raced as he fumbled out of bed, groggy and certain his house was ablaze. But there were no flames, no smoke, just pitch-black silence. The power was out again. He groaned, dragging a hand across his face. This was the third blackout that month, and he could already predict what was coming next. His insufferably nosy HOA president, Linda Grayson, would soon show up to nag him about something trivial. But Mark wasn't about to endure another frigid, sleepless night. He shuffled to his garage, tugged the cord on his trusty old generator, and with a loyal rumble, it sprang to life. Within minutes, his home glowed with light, the fridge buzzed back on, and the faint murmur of his TV drowned out the distant grumbles of his neighbors. Sure enough, 15 minutes later, Linda materialized at his doorstep, clad in her signature pastel blazer and wielding a clipboard like a weapon. She pounded on the door as if she were leading a SWAT team. "Mark," she snapped, "this is outrageous." He cracked the door open, clutching a steaming mug of coffee, still half asleep. "Linda, it's 3 a.m. That generator violates HOA noise rules," she barked. "It's quieter than the kid down the street banging on his drums," Mark mumbled. "I'm just keeping my fridge from turning into a science experiment. You know the regulations." Linda jabbed a finger toward his yard, as if casting some HOA hex. "Generators are an eyesore and disturb the peace." "Sorry, Linda," Mark said with mock courtesy, "but I'm not freezing in the dark because you hate a little hum." He started to shut the door. "You think you're slick?" Linda's voice sharpened. "You think I won't act on this?" "Go home, Linda," Mark said, closing the door with a firm click. The next morning, Mark stepped outside and froze. His generator was gone. He stared at the empty spot, then glanced across the street. Linda sat on her porch, sipping coffee with a triumphant smirk. He marched over, fuming. "You took my generator?" "I confiscated it," Linda said smugly. "It's in my garage until you follow HOA rules. You can't just steal my stuff." "It's not stealing," she countered. "It's enforcement." Mark turned away, seething, when something odd caught his eye, a black van idling at the corner. Two men in dark suits sat inside, staring straight at his house. He blinked. They didn't flinch. That night, curiosity pulled Mark to the alley behind his home. He spotted a thick black cable snaking from a hidden junction box to where his generator had been. The cable was sliced where Linda had ripped it free. Weirder still, the box had a blinking red light labeled, "Alert, System Failure." "What the hell?" Mark muttered. Before he could dig deeper, footsteps crunched behind him. He spun around as three men in suits charged into his yard. One flashed a badge. "Federal Bureau of Investigation," the man growled. "Step away from the equipment." Mark stiffened. "You've just compromised an active surveillance op," the agent snapped. "You have no clue what you've done." "Wait, what?" Mark stammered. "What's going on?" "Your generator," the agent said, "was powering a critical FBI surveillance hub monitoring a high-risk suspect in this neighborhood." He pointed to a laptop where video feeds flickered and died. "Without it, we've lost everything." "You're joking," Mark said. "We don't joke," the agent shot back. "We need that generator now." Linda's smug grin flashed in Mark's mind. "Oh," he said slowly, "this is going to be good." Two agents trailed him as he stormed to Linda's house. He hammered on her door harder than she ever had on his. She answered, her self-righteous smile fading slightly. "Back already?" "I need my generator," Mark demanded. "Oh, decided to play by the rules," Linda taunted. "It's not about rules," Mark said. "That generator was powering something big." "Please," Linda scoffed. "You're bluffing." "It was hooked to an FBI surveillance station," Mark said. Her smirk wavered, but she recovered fast. "I don't buy it. You're trying to intimidate me." "I'm not," Mark said. "They are." He stepped aside, revealing the agents, one in a bulletproof vest, the other holding a tablet with ominous maps. Linda paled. "You've disrupted a federal investigation," one agent warned. "We need that equipment now." Linda's jaw flapped uselessly. I was just..." "Where is it?" the agent demanded. "In my garage," she croaked. Moments later, the agents wheeled out the generator, fired it up, and restored their system. Mark shot Linda a satisfied grin as they passed. "You're in deep now," an agent told her before heading back with Mark. Once everything was running, The lead agent turned to him. Keep that generator going for a few days. The suspect's dangerous, and this station's vital. Sure, Mark said. If Linda tries anything, can I call you for backup? The agent smirked. You won't need to. We'll be watching her too. Mark chuckled. The generator hummed, lights flickered on, and he sat back with a cold beer, savoring the win. Across the street, Linda sulked, her smugness gone. Mark raised his bottle in a mock toast. Cheers, Linda, he muttered. Cheers. The next morning, Mark sat on his porch, coffee in hand, replaying the wild night. His beat-up generator had been secretly powering an FBI sting. Who'd have thought? The agents were cagey about their target, but their hushed panic told him it was bad. Linda's meddling had nearly wrecked it all, and her stunned face when the feds showed up was pure gold. It was a rare win, but Mark knew she wouldn't let it go quietly. Sure enough, just before noon, Linda marched over, clipboard clutched tight, her scowl fierce. Think you're smart, huh? She spat. Pulling some scam to make me look dumb? You don't need me for that, Mark quipped, grinning. The FBI made it pretty clear who screwed up. Linda's eyes narrowed. Don't play innocent. I don't buy that generator tale. You're hiding something. Yeah, Mark said dryly. I'm running a spy ring from my garage. Real convincing. You'll regret this, Linda snapped. I know you're up to no good. Before Mark could reply, two neighbors joined the fray. Old Mr. Jenkins, a stickler for HOA rules, crossed his arms. Linda, you've crossed a line, he said sharply. Stealing property, messing with power. You're out of control. I was enforcing community standards. Linda protested. You almost tanked a federal sting, chimed in Mrs. Carter, the no-nonsense widow from down the street. This isn't about rules anymore. You're a menace. Linda's face reddened. I'm the HOA president. I did what's best. By cutting power to a government op? Mark asked, smirking. Real heroic. The argument grew louder as more neighbors piled in. Linda's shrill defenses lost traction fast. But Mark noticed something. She wasn't just defending herself. She kept accusing him of being a threat, as if deflecting suspicion. That evening, his unease deepened. Two black SUVs parked nearby. The FBI was still around, watching someone close. Curious, he approached an agent in the alley. The guy was annoyed, but let slip. We had the suspect in our sights for weeks. Now we're scrambling. Whatever you do, don't talk to Linda. That stuck with Mark. Don't talk to Linda? The FBI wasn't focused on his house anymore. They were watching hers. Determined, Mark kept an eye on Linda's place the next day. Her son, Kyle, a lanky college dropout glued to video games, paced outside, nervously chatting on his phone. Something was off. That night, Mark saw Linda sneak to her car with a heavy box. He tailed her quietly, watching as she handed it to someone in the shadows behind Mrs. Carter's shed. Mr. Carter himself, the harmless old guy who fussed over hedges. But the way he took the box, glancing at the FBI vans, screamed guilt. Mark's gut churned. The next morning, Linda appeared at his door, smiling too sweetly. Just a heads up, she said. The HOA's meeting tonight to discuss your shady behavior. People are worried about your FBI ties. You're kidding, Mark said, stunned. You're pinning this on me. Her grin widened. I told you not to cross me. Furious, Mark spent the day stewing. Linda knew more than she let on. He cornered an agent later, who opened up. We're not just watching Carter. We've intercepted messages tied to an arms ring. Carter's passing coded signals, probably without knowing, via his landline. Someone's feeding him fake numbers, charity calls, surveys. Every dial relays a message. And Linda? Mark asked. The agent frowned. We think she's unknowingly feeding him those numbers through her HOA obsession, call logs, lists. She's a pawn. That night, at the HOA meeting, Linda ranted about order, accusing Mark of aiding the blackout to thwart the FBI. He was about to retort when Kyle slipped out the back. Mark followed, trailing him to Carter's house. Kyle knocked in a pattern, twice, pause, once. Carter opened the door, handing over a cash-stuffed envelope. Mark hid behind a bush as blue and red lights flooded the street. FBI agents swarmed, tackling Kyle, who tripped over a hose, and cuffing Carter. Linda, watching from the crowd, gaped as agents hit her house too. Stay inside, an agent warned Mark. This'll get messy. Wouldn't miss it, Mark grinned. Later, Mark paced his living room, replaying the chaos. The FBI had nabbed Kyle and Carter, but Linda's role nagged at him. The agents got their men, but key evidence was still missing. That night, he saw Linda stuffing boxes into her car, one marked like the package she'd given Carter. She was running. Mark marched over. "What do you want?" she snapped. "What are you hiding?" he shot back. "Packing quick, huh? Mind your business," she sneered. "Cleaning my garage." Mark spotted a bulky black duffel in the corner. "You're running," he muttered. "From what?" she scoffed. "The FBI's not done with you," Mark warned. "They're after something you've got." Linda's smirk flickered. "Hand it over," Mark said. "You're nuts," she hissed, clutching the bag. "You've been a mule for crooks," Mark pressed. "Passing numbers, cash. Now you're holding the last piece." "This isn't your fight," she snapped, shoving past him to her car. Mark lunged, snagging the bag. They wrestled. It tore open. Cash spilled out, plus a tablet with coded messages and an iron key tagged Storage Unit 16. Linda froze. "You shouldn't have seen that," she whispered. "Oh, I think I should have," Mark panted, snatching the key and bolting home. He called the FBI. Agents arrived fast. "That's it," one said, eyeing the key. "Ties to a storage site 10 miles out, weapons stash." "Linda had this the whole time?" Mark asked. "Unknowingly," the agent said. "She's been played." They raced to the facility. Linda's car was there. Mark watched from behind a dumpster as agents nabbed her at Unit 16. A shadowy man lunged at them with a gun, but Mark hurled a trash lid, knocking it free. Agents pinned the guy. Inside, guns, fake IDs, counterfeit cash. "I didn't know," Linda wailed. "I was just tracking residents." "You got played," Mark said. "Your control freak act let the real crooks run you." That night, Mark sat on his porch, beer in hand, as the last FBI van left. A black car lingered, though, someone watching. The next morning, he confronted the driver, a sharp-eyed man in a suit. "Just keeping watch," the man said coolly. "People like Linda leave loose ends." "Loose ends," Mark echoed. "Stay out of it," the man warned, driving off. That night, Mark woke to footsteps and a clink at his back door. He grabbed a flashlight and frying pan, slamming it against the window. The intruder fled. Agents arrived, confirming the crooks thought Linda hid something big. "They'll tear this place apart for it," one said. Next morning, Mark slipped into Linda's garage, finding a leather notebook of coded coordinates amid junk. He photographed it, sent it to the FBI. It cracked the case. Raids uncovered more stashes. A week later, Linda was on community service, glaring in an orange vest as Mark waved cheerily. An agent dropped off a steakhouse gift card. "You saved us," he said. "That notebook sealed it." "Glad to help," Mark grinned. "Keep an eye out for Linda's next scheme." As the agent left, Mark sipped his beer, savoring the calm. Linda might stir trouble again, but after this, he'd be ready, and he'd already won.